Hello everyone. Welcome to this video. My name is Brenda Campbell. I'm an artist and a certified Zentangle teacher. And today I want to play with one of Zentangle's gray tiles. And we are going to use some blue ink and some white chalk and some white gel ink as well to kind of make some of our tangles pop on this gray tile. If you're drawing along, what you're going to want is a blue Micron 01. It's like a royal blue. You'll want a blue-black Micron PN, but you can always use a black instead of the blue-black. A jelly roll, standard 08 size. I'm going to use graphite for some shading and white chalk as well for some highlights. So also I'm going to use a tortillon to blend out both the graphite and the chalk. So that's what we're going to use. Plus we're going to use a 3.5 inch square Zentangle Gray tile. And it's a little bit different texture than the white tiles. It almost feels a little bit thinner, but it's a really nice color and it works really well with the pens and the chalk. So let's go ahead and begin today with just a few deep breaths to try to get us settled in and ready to do a little tangling. So sit up straight and comfortably, and let's go ahead and begin. Breathing in and breathing out, and just let your shoulders drop, and breathing in again, and straightening up as you breathe in, and breathing out, just letting everything melt away. And one final big breath in and out. And now just let your breath fall into a natural rhythm and just follow it in and out. Just try to clear your mind. If thoughts come in, that's okay. Just acknowledge them and then just let them go. And now think about something that makes you happy. It can be anything, it can be the smallest of things. And hold on to it and really feel into it. Are you smiling? So remember this feeling as we draw today. And if you start to get a little flustered, just stop yourself, take a deep breath, and then when you're ready, remember that feeling, and then pick up your pen and draw again. It makes all the difference. And that is the end of step 1 for me, gratitude and appreciation. Now we're going to pick up our pencil and we are going to draw our 4 dots in the corner. We're still going to use the Zentangle method of drawing. Step 3 is to connect the dots with a border. And step 4 is to draw a string, and the string is going to kind of separate the spaces for us to put our patterns. So I'm going to go ahead and draw kind of a loop-de-loo line today. I'm starting about, I don't know, a third of the way in on the bottom line, coming up all the way to the top with a loop, and then coming off to the right side. And that's my string today. Now, if I didn't want the graphite on my string lines, I could have drawn that in white chalk, but it's hard for me to see, so I can imagine it would be even harder for you to see on the video. So I used graphite, but remember, no mistakes, so I'm happy. Now, the first tangle that we're going to draw is Marisu, and we're going to make Marisu into a bit of a rope. We're going to use our string line to do that, and I'm going to use my royal blue Micron 01, and I'm going to start by drawing from the side of the tile, just drawing right on top of that string line. And I'm going to go ahead, once I've got this curve, gotten it started, I'm going to go ahead and draw a second line in aura, and that is going to be the width of my Marisu rope. So now I'm going to go back to this first line, continue drawing around. And the reason that I drew that aura line was because I want this loop on the rope to go behind the first rope section. So that's why I did that. And then I'm going to go ahead and try and do my aura inside. Don't really have too much room, but original outside of the string line. Take it all the way there. Now you can ignore the border here if you want and take it all the way to the side. I ignored the border over here, so I'm gonna have it kind of stop at the border on this side, just for a little bit of interest. Go back to drawing my aura, making my rope. Okay. So I just took the string line, turned it into a coil of my Marisu rope. Marisu is the tangle, but sometimes it's drawn like a coil and sometimes it's drawn like a rope, or even a combination of the two. And today I'm simply just using it as the rope. So now the first step after we've got our border is to draw some curved lines, and we're going to make some, these are going to become solid blue, and then we're going to leave space between. So we're essentially leaving space and then drawing a curved line and auraing it, leaving some more space. And these lines, these bands, if you will, around this coil in this pattern, they can be as skinny or as wide as you like. It's totally up to you. See, I kind of made this one look very different because it was on the end, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I imagine we'll find out. So this would be underneath, and then let's go down here. as I go around so that I can have a more consistent curved line. And because of the huge spiral, I've been turning it quite a bit in between each one. Now we're getting to the end. It's not quite so curved. Okay, so I've got all of my bands, and I'm gonna go ahead and fill those in. And it's gonna take a little bit of time, that's okay. But I wanna get started and show you something I like to do with Marisu sometimes. And I will be doing it with the pattern today. Once I have it filled in, and I get to the edges, I like to just kind of bump it out over that line, just a little bit. But again, make it as big a bump or as little a bump, or don't put any bump there if you don't want, because it's totally up to you. I just put a little bit of bump, gives it a little bit of dimension, I guess. So there's my first one, and I'm gonna do this all the way around. So if you're drawing along, go ahead and pause the video at this point and fill your bands, your dark bands in on your Marisu pattern tangle. And take your time. You can get just as much zen from filling in a solid ink as from drawing lines. You just have to focus on filling it in and nothing more. And when you're done and you're happy, then come back to the video and start it up again, and we'll move on to the next step. In the meantime, I'm gonna finish mine, but I'm gonna cut that out, and when you come back, I'll be ready for the next step. So go ahead and pause that video now. All right, I'm back. I've got all of my blue bands filled in, and I am now going to pick up my blue-black micron PN. Now, if you don't have two colors of blue, you can always use black. In fact, if you don't have any blue, you can always use black on all of these patterns, and I'm sure your tile will look just fine. So remember, use what you have, and don't worry about it, because there are no mistakes. Okay, so the next step in our Marisu tangle is to go ahead and add some single lines in the center. You can add one, you can add two, depending on how much space you left between the other bands. It's totally up to you. I've got a pretty wide space, so I'm going to use 2 lines. And I'm just going around my tile, around my rope. If you've been watching my Mindful Monday videos that are all black and white, classic Zentangle tiles, you should know that these are all just patterns. So you don't have to have special colored paper. You don't have to have special colored pens. Use what you have or use what you prefer. If you have a different pen you like better, use that. Zentangle should make you happy. Okay, I think we're done with Marisu. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my pen, my blue-black pen away. And think about what else I want to add to this tile. You know, I could keep it really simple, and maybe that's what I'll do. I think I will just keep it simple. I'm going to use my Jelly Roll 08 white pen, and I am going to draw the pattern behind this. I'm going to draw a pattern. It's a grid pattern, and so let's just draw our grid first. I'm going to do mine on the diagonal. So there's my first line, and let's do about that wide. Okay, now keep going on this side, drawing behind the rope whenever, the Marisu, whenever I get to it. Okay, now I'm going to turn it around, fill in the rest of the lines going this direction. That one got wide, but that's okay. No mistakes. Okay. Hopefully you can see this white on the gray. It is kind of subtle, but that's actually going to look pretty cool, I think. And that's why I chose the white. I'm trying to be careful with my gel pen. When I come up to the blue, I might even try to leave a little space, because otherwise you cross into it, it kind of takes away the blue. But that's okay, we'll go back over it when we're done here. So we are now going to draw the pattern Toruka, and that is simply the straight lines of the grid. And each one of our grid squares, we're going to put a printom, a spiral tangle or pattern. And so you can obviously start anywhere you like and just fill that square with a spiral and work your way around the tile. Fill in all those squares, going behind when you reach the Marisu. These really small squares are kind of harder to navigate behind, but I usually, I'll show you on this one, I've got a little more real estate here, but what I do is I start on the outside with my spiral, and then I might draw one or two bands, whatever I've got room for. This one's only going to have room for one. Let's do this one. If you're having trouble with your ink coming out, maybe just try lightening up on your pressure. You might be stopping the ink by adding too much pressure to the pen. Okay. I apparently have no rhyme or reason as I go around. That's okay. My spirals are not all going the same direction, and I don't really care, so you don't have to worry about those kind of things. Because nobody's going to notice. And if they do, it'll just be a little more interesting. I really like the white on this gray because it's subtle, and I like that. It really blends into the background, so. I think it just makes it more interesting, I guess, in the end, bottom line. You get a lot of contrast between the dark blue ink and the white ink on the gray tile. Sometimes I do this corner thing with the printout, and sometimes I don't. And again, there's really just no rhyme or reason. It's all good. I think I've got them all. Okay, pretty sure I've got them all. I am now going to move on to shading, and I am going to get my black pencil, my graphite, and I am going to shade, let's see, let's shade, okay. I'm going to shade underneath my Marisu on the coil on the inside right. And then what would potentially be underneath. Yeah, so we got that. Darker there. Okay, that's pretty good. So I'm just gonna go ahead and blend that out first. And I really think this is a cool effect with this graphite on top of this white gel ink, because it almost makes the white gel ink stand out a little bit more now. So that's kind of cool. Okay, now I have said many times that there are no mistakes. And when it comes to shading, it really doesn't matter all that much. Whether you worry about having a light source or, you know, if you're not a fine artist, don't worry about it. It's not that important. You can just, we're adding contrast, I guess. That's all we're really doing. Now, before I do any more, I'm going to go ahead and take my Royal Blue 01 pen, and I am going to go over all of these lines. I'm going to start with the solid spaces, and I'm going to kind of cover up any of the white gel ink that moved across. Now, it might not cover well, and the gel ink might bleed back through, but it will cover a little bit, and it'll be helpful. So that is what I'm doing. Okay, now I think I've got most of the white that came onto the solid blue. So the next thing I'm going to do is go over my outside lines again, just to reinforce them. And any of the white that came across will then get covered up again. And if you are using the blue ink, and it's the Sakura pen, I don't know if you've noticed, but it starts out a pretty, you know, royal blue. Every additional layer you add kind of darkens that blue. So if you look at this line before I cover it up, it is a lighter shade than the band, which we put a lot of ink on. And when I cross over it, now this is darker than this one. So you can add contrast with this ink, the colored inks, by just adding an extra layer. Now you want to be careful that you don't make an extra line, but don't worry too much, because remember, there are no mistakes. I'm just taking my time, going around. Okay, now I've got an overlap here, but you really can't tell because it's all kind of a solid blue ink. So I'm also going to come back to my Marisu with my graphite, and I am going to go, now I've got graphite under on this side, so this side has no graphite behind or outside of the tangle, and so I'm going to put a little bit of graphite right on the tangle next to the line, on the inside of the line. This one we're going to use to give our Marisu a little bit more dimension. Okay, and here's an overlap, so I'll put some there. Now, we've got graphite on both sides of this, so it doesn't really matter. I guess I'll just use this side to keep it consistent with the rest of it. And then we're back to where there really isn't any. Okay, I think that's good. Now I'll blend that out. I don't put it over the blue ink because this paper really is thinner, more fragile even than the white tiles. So as I'm blending my graphite, I'm being much more careful because I don't want it to start tearing up the paper. And all of that space with that blue is going to be a little bit compromised from all the ink. So we're not adding anything to blend on top of that. So this is just a little trick I've used to add some interest in my tiles where the shading is. And that is simply to put shading underneath or on one side, kind of underneath and on the right side, let's say. And then adding shading inside the pattern where there is none behind. And that separates this from the background without having to put extra graphite down. So let's see, how is that looking? I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to come back to my blue-black PN pen, and I'm going to try to draw a little bit of a line here to add definition, if you will, and the illusion that one goes behind. First thing would be that little bump out of my blue. And I'm just kind of thickening that blue-black line a little bit. And that, it's kind of hard to see, so I'm not sure you can tell, but I think it does help to add a little bit more specific definition there. Then I'm going to take my Royal Blue 01 pen back out, and I'm going to go back over this line because we kind of lost a little bit of it when we added the graphite. Oop. Well, I used blue-black, but that's okay. Yep, doesn't really look. This was the blue-black, and I just put Royal Blue over it, but it's okay. It doesn't look bad. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I want to add a highlight to my Marisu, and that's where my white chalk comes into play. So I'm going to take the white chalk, and I am going to, using small circle motions, I'm going to kind of add a line to the center of my Marisu rope. Remember, it's a highlight, so I didn't really take it right up to the edge where the two of them meet. That's okay. Going back over and adding a little bit more white chalk on that line. Now I'm going to kind of blend that out, and remember when I said be careful around the blue. So I'm going first into the sections, not the band sections, but the sections between the bands, and just with kind of the side of my tortillon and very, very light touch, kind of blending out that. Now I'm going to go back even more carefully and go over the chalk on the blue bands very lightly. And it kind of dulls the white, makes it a little bit blue, but in actuality I think shadows do have color in them, and so it doesn't bother me. If you would prefer it to be more white, you can just go right back over it. With more white chalk. Go right back over it with more white chalk, and that will make it whiter. But that's okay, I'm good with this. Okay, so it's not terribly smooth blended, but that's okay. It's got some character, the scratchiness to it. And the final thing with my highlight is to get my Jelly Roll pen out. And this is the 08. You could use a thicker one if you have it and you want to. I'm going to make sure that it has ink flowing, and that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to go on top of that line with my jelly roll. Now, sometimes it doesn't work real good on top of chalk. So I'm off camera, but I'm wiping that off on a tissue, get the gunk out. And I'm using kind of small scratchy motions, which is not ideal, but it still gets the job done. Wipe it off again. Now, the lighter my touch, the better my line. But it is always a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more challenging with the chalk, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfectly square or straight line anyway. Perfectly solid. It doesn't have to be. It's really amazing when you work with patterns how much the mind will overlook and fill in the blanks. So there really are no mistakes. Sometimes if I draw a line and I don't like where it went, I fret over it a little bit. In the end, when the tile is done, I can't even find it sometimes because it just fades away and disappears. Okay, I think that's good. Now, one last thing with the shading is I want to go ahead and just take my tortillon and go around the edge of my tile, the border line that I drew with graphite. And that's just going to give a little bit of separation between the end of the tile where the pattern is and where the pattern is not. But you know, I think I'm even going to add a little bit more graphite here because we added some drama with the white, or the bands, the solid blue bands on Marisu. But I want to add a little bit more contrast here. So I think I shall. You know, I'm going to do this carefully, but it looks like I missed a corner here. So I'll put those white lines in before I blend it out, but I'm going to start over here so I can give that white gel ink time to dry. Okay, so I'm just using the tip of my tortillon right at the line of the graphite, and I'm kind of pulling it down into the pattern as I shade. And that white gel ink can easily get lost on this gray paper. So this is going to help bring some more attention to that tangle as well. All that's left now is to put my chop on here. I think I'm going to go ahead and put my chop on with my Micron PN Blue Black pen. It's just a dark blue. And I think I'm going to have him sit up here on this piece of rope. more darkness underneath it to make it kind of accentuate the fact that it goes behind my Marisu rope. I think we're done. So we've gone all the way through step 6. Step 5 was drawing the patterns. Step 6 was shading, and we added highlights today. And then step 7 is our chop and sign on the back. And you can date it if you like. I'm going to list my patterns. So we started with Marisu, and we made it into a rope kind of thing today instead of a coil. And then we added Toruka in the background with the white gel ink. So we really only have 2 tangles on this tile, but you get a chance to see how the blue looks on the gray tile. I hope you drew along, and if you did, I hope you enjoyed it. So I think that's all for today. Step 8 of the Zentangle Method is just to sit back and admire our art again. I hope you are admiring yours. And if you do share them, please remember to tag me so that I can see. I love to see your art that you draw along with me. So have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. And I hope you tune in next time. And until then, be you and be happy.